Picture waking up on Christmas morning. The house is still dark, the radiator clanking, frost feathering the windows. You are 6 years old, maybe 7, and you lie perfectly still under the heavy blankets, afraid to breathe, because if you listen hard enough, you might still hear sleigh bells fading into the winter sky. This was Christmas in 1960s America, when the world felt new and hopeful, when families gathered around a single television set to watch miracles in black and white, when the Sears wish book was a portal to every dream you had. For those who lived it, Christmas in the 60s was not just a holiday. It was an event, a season, a feeling that started the day after Thanksgiving and built slowly and beautifully until that magical morning when you crept downstairs and saw what Santa had left beneath the tree. If you experienced it, these memories never left you. They are still there, waiting, like ornaments wrapped in tissue paper, stored in a box in your heart. It started with the catalog. The Sears wish book arrived in September, thick as a telephone directory, and from that moment on, it never left your side. You studied it like scripture. You dog-eared the pages. You circled items with a crayon until the paper nearly tore through. Page after page of toys you had never seen in person. Electric train sets with smoking locomotives and tiny towns. Baby dolls that cried real tears and wet their diapers. Slot car racing tracks that promised hours of excitement. And there, somewhere in those glossy pages, was the one thing, the impossible thing, you wanted more than anything in the world. You wrote your letter to Santa with painstaking care. You used your best penmanship, and you wrote please and thank you. You sealed it, addressed it to the North Pole, and handed it to your mother, trusting completely that it would find its way. The Montgomery Ward catalog was just as magical. Families who could not make it to the big department stores in the city relied on those catalogs like lifelines. You could order anything, toys, clothes, even a Christmas tree, and it would arrive by mail, packed in brown paper and string. Your parents studied the catalogs too, late at night after you had gone to bed, calculating prices, figuring out layaway payments, trying to make Christmas happen on a budget that did not have much give. You never knew how hard they worked. You only knew that somehow, every year, the magic appeared. The tree was an expedition, not a trip to the store, an adventure. Your father loaded everyone into the station wagon, wood-paneled, with bench seats and no seat belts, and drove out to the tree lot on the edge of town. Or maybe, if you were lucky, you went out to an actual farm where you could cut your own. The cold was brutal. You wore your heavy coat, the one with the toggles, and a knit cap pulled down over your ears. Your mittens were already soaked through by the time you found it, the perfect tree, standing there like it had been waiting for you all along. Your father sawed it down himself, or haggled with the lot owner over price, while you ran between the rows of evergreens, drunk on the smell of pine and the promise of Christmas. The tree was tied to the roof of the car with rope, branches hanging over the windshield, and you drove home slowly, hazard lights blinking, everyone laughing. Inside, the tree stand was a battle. Your father on his back under the branches, cursing quietly, turning screws, while your mother stood back and said, "A little to the left. No, the other left. Now it's leaning." The process took an hour. The tree was never quite straight. It didn't matter. The decorations came down from the attic, boxes and boxes of them, some older than you were, wrapped in newspaper from years past. Each ornament had a history. This one was from your parents' first Christmas together. That one your grandmother brought from the old country. The angel on top had been watching over your family's tree since before you were born. Her face faded, her wings slightly bent. The lights were a project. C9 bulbs, red and green and blue and orange, each one screwed into a socket on a long green cord. If one bulb burned out, the whole string went dark, and your father spent half of Christmas Eve testing each one, replacing duds from a box of spares, until finally, they all glowed. Some families had bubble lights, those magical candle-shaped bulbs filled with colored liquid that bubbled when they got hot. You could watch them for hours, mesmerized, the bubbles rising and falling like tiny lava lamps. And some families, the modern ones, the stylish ones, had aluminum trees, silvery, shimmering, artificial. No needles to vacuum, no water to refill, just pure space-age elegance, like something from the Jetsons. You did not put regular lights on an aluminum tree. That was dangerous. Instead, you set up a color wheel on the floor, a spotlight with a rotating disc of red, blue, green, and gold, and watched as your tree transformed, cycling through colors like a dream. It was the future. It was glamorous. Your traditional grandmother thought it was tacky. She was not entirely wrong, but you loved it anyway. Tinsel was applied strand by strand. Your mother insisted. No throwing it in clumps. No shortcuts. Each silver strand was draped individually over each branch until the tree shimmered like it was covered in icicles. It took hours. Your arms ached. Your patience ran out. But when you finally plugged in the lights and stepped back, the tree looked like something from a department store window. The tinsel was lead-based back then, heavy and lustrous. Nothing like the flimsy plastic stuff that came later. It hung perfectly, caught the light, made everything magical. Nobody worried about lead. Nobody worried about much of anything, or so it seemed. The nativity scene went beneath the tree or on the mantle or in a place of honor on the side table. Mary and Joseph, the baby Jesus, the shepherds and wise men, all arranged just so. In many homes, baby Jesus was not placed in the manger until Christmas morning, a small ritual, a reminder of what the day was really about. Outside, your father strung lights along the roof line and wrapped them around the bushes. Big bulbs, primary colors, glowing against the snow. The neighbors did the same. The whole street lit up like a landing strip for Santa's sleigh. The television brought Christmas into your living room. Not just any Christmas, the same Christmas everyone in America was watching all at once together. The specials were appointment viewing, sacred. You did not record them because you could not. You watched them when they aired, or you missed them, and missing them was unthinkable. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer premiered in 1964, and nothing was ever the same. Those Rankin Bass stop-motion figures captured imaginations. With Rudolph and his glowing nose, Hermie the elf who wanted to be a dentist, the abominable snowman, the island of misfit toys. You watched it every year, knew every song by heart, and still felt a lump in your throat when Rudolph finally saved Christmas. A Charlie Brown Christmas arrived in 1965. Linus standing in the spotlight, reciting the nativity story from the Gospel of Luke. Charlie Brown's sad little tree, transformed by love and a little bit of Snoopy's decorating genius. The Vince Guaraldi Trio's jazz piano soundtrack became the sound of the season itself. Christmas time is here, happiness and cheer. How the Grinch Stole Christmas came the next year, 1966. Boris Karloff narrating. The Grinch's heart growing 3 sizes. Little Cindy Lou. Who? No more than 2. Welcome Christmas, bring your cheer. These were not just TV shows. They were rituals. They were shared experiences that united every child in America. Monday morning at school, everyone talked about them. If you had missed one, you were lost. The variety specials were for the whole family. Andy Williams in his cardigan, singing carols by the fire, his Christmas album playing in every home in America. Perry Como's gentle crooning, Bing Crosby welcoming celebrity guests to a television living room that looked like everyone's dream of Christmas. Dean Martin, slightly tipsy, charming as ever. The whole family gathered around the TV set. One TV, black and white for most of the decade, color if you were lucky and wealthy, everyone watching together because there was nowhere else to be. Downtown was Wonderland. The department stores transformed themselves into Christmas palaces. Macy's in New York, Marshall Field's in Chicago, J.L. Hudson's in Detroit. Gimbels, Wanamakers, Riches, Filene's, every city had its temple of Christmas commerce, and visiting it was a pilgrimage. Your mother dressed you in your good clothes, your Sunday best. Girls in party dresses with petticoats, white tights, patent leather shoes. boys in slacks and clip-on ties, hair slicked down with Brill cream. You took the bus downtown, or your father drove and parked in the big lot, and you walked through streets glittering with decorations, Salvation Army bells ringing on every corner. The window displays stopped you cold. Animated scenes behind plate glass, mechanical elves hammering toys, trains circling miniature villages, Santa's workshop in full operation. You pressed your nose against the window, fogging the glass with your breath, trying to see every detail. Your mother had to drag you away. Inside was even better. The cosmetics counter smelled like perfume and powder. The toy department was chaos, with children everywhere, touching everything, begging for everything. And somewhere in the middle of it all, on a throne of red velvet, surrounded by artificial snow and cotton batting, sat Santa Claus. The line wrapped around the entire floor. You waited for what felt like hours, clutching your mother's hand, heart pounding. And then it was your turn. You climbed onto his lap, looked into his face. Was it really him? It had to be him, and you whispered your deepest wish. "Ho, ho, ho," he said. "Have you been a good boy?" You nodded solemnly. He handed you a candy cane, and you floated away, certain your wish would come true. The music was everywhere, not piped in through hidden speakers like today, played and performed, alive. Carolers walked through neighborhoods, bundled in scarves and mittens, singing door to door. Sometimes they were church groups, sometimes just neighbors who had had enough eggnog to feel brave. You would open the door and stand in the warm light, listening, maybe joining in if you knew the words. White Christmas, Silent Night, the Christmas song with Nat King Cole's velvet voice. I'll Be Home for Christmas, a song that still carried the ache of wartime, even years later. The radio played them in heavy rotation. Your parents' hi-fi stereo, that big wooden cabinet in the living room, spun records all season long. Elvis had his Christmas album. So did Brenda Lee, belting out Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree with the kind of energy that made even your grandmother tap her foot. In 1963, Phil Spector released A Christmas Gift for You, featuring the Ronettes, the Crystals, and Darlene Love singing Christmas, Baby Please Come Home with a longing that could break your heart. The school Christmas pageant was serious business. Weeks of rehearsal, costumes made from bathrobes and tinfoil halos. You sang Away in a Manger and Jingle Bells and We Wish You a Merry Christmas. Your voice lost in the chorus. Your parents beaming from the audience. Your teacher mouthing the words from the side of the stage. Nobody worried about saying Merry Christmas. Nobody debated the phrase. It was simply what you said to everyone all the time, and they said it back, and it felt like a blessing. Christmas Eve was controlled chaos. The house smelled like heaven. Sugar cookies baking, stars and bells, and Christmas trees ready for frosting. The turkey was already prepped, sitting in the refrigerator, waiting for its early morning appointment with the oven. Pies cooled on the counter. Fudge hardened in the pan. Your mother had not sat down in 3 days. She had cleaned the house top to bottom, washed the good china, ironed the tablecloth, polished the silver. She had wrapped presents late into the night, hiding them in the back of closets, the trunk of the car, anywhere small eyes could not find them. The extended family arrived in waves. Grandparents first, bearing covered dishes and wrapped packages. Aunts and uncles next, stomping snow off their boots, kissing cheeks, pressing coins into your palm. Cousins piled in, and suddenly the house was full of noise and laughter and the barely contained energy of children who knew what tomorrow would bring. The adults drank cocktails, martinis, Manhattans, whiskey sours, Tom Collins. Your father played bartender, proud of his technique, slightly competitive with Uncle Frank about whose old-fashioned was better. The women gathered in the kitchen, trading gossip, checking the oven, shooing children away from the cookie plate. Dinner was a production. The good dishes came out. The table extended with extra leaves. Kids sat at a separate table, the kids' table, which you pretended to resent but secretly loved. Ham maybe, or roast beef. The turkey was for tomorrow. Mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, that quintessentially 1960s creation with the canned soup and French's fried onions on top. Jell-O mold, quivering and mysterious, studded with fruit cocktail or marshmallows or both, rolls from a package, butter in a fancy dish. You ate until you could not move. And then someone brought out the pie, and somehow you found room. After dinner, the rituals began, reading the Christmas story from the Bible, Luke chapter 2. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus. Your grandfather read it, or your father, voice solemn, the room quiet for once. Opening one present on Christmas Eve, a tradition in some families, torture for others. The gift was always pajamas, or a book, or something practical. Never the big one. That was for morning. Bundling up for midnight mass, if you were Catholic. The church blazing with candles, packed with families, the choir singing "O Holy Night" and meaning it. You tried to stay awake but usually failed, leaning against your mother, the Latin washing over you like a lullaby, or staying home, listening for sleigh bells, watching for Santa through the frost-covered window. You left cookies on a plate, homemade, the ones with the colored sugar and a glass of milk and a carrot for the reindeer. You climbed into bed, buzzing with anticipation, knowing you would never fall asleep. You were wrong. You always fell asleep. And in the morning, the magic had happened. Christmas morning. You woke before dawn. You always woke before dawn. The house was silent, but you could not wait another minute. You crept to the top of the stairs, heart pounding, and looked down. There it was. The tree, lights glowing in the darkness, presents spilling out from underneath. And there, in the spot where nothing had been the night before, the big gift, unwrapped, assembled, impossible, left by Santa himself. A bicycle, red and gleaming, streamers flowing from the handlebars, a baby doll in a little bed, a wardrobe of tiny clothes beside her, an electric train set, track already laid out, engine ready to run. You screamed. You could not help it. The whole house woke up, parents stumbling from bedrooms, siblings thundering down the stairs, everyone talking at once. The present opening was a frenzy. Paper torn and flying, ribbons tangled, boxes cast aside. You got what you had asked for, that impossible thing from the catalog, and for a moment, the world was perfect. The toys of the 60s were something special. Barbie, of course. She had arrived in 1959 and by the 60s had taken over the world. Every girl wanted her, and her dream house, her convertible, her endless wardrobe. She was glamorous. She was grown up. She was everything you wanted to be. G.I. Joe for the boys, starting in 1964. Not a doll, but an action figure. A soldier with realistic gear, movable joints, a scar on his cheek. He had vehicles, weapons, uniforms. He fought battles in backyard dirt and on bedroom carpet. Easy bake oven, baking tiny cakes with a light bulb. Etch, a sketch, drawing and erasing with those mysterious knobs. Light bright, making pictures with glowing pegs. Rock'em sock'em robots, punching until someone's head popped up. Twister, tangling limbs in ways that made your parents uncomfortable. Mousetrap, a game that was more fun to set up than to play. Slot cars, model kits, chemistry sets that would terrify modern parents. Cap guns that looked real. Erector sets and Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys. Creepy crawlers, making rubber bugs in a hot metal mold with no safety features whatsoever. These were not disposable toys. They were treasures. You played with them until they broke, and then you tried to fix them, and when you could not, you mourned them like friends. Christmas dinner was early afternoon. The turkey came out of the oven golden brown, aromatic, enormous. Your father carved it at the head of the table, a man's job and a point of pride. The dark meat and the white meat were arranged on the platter. The sides filled every inch of remaining table space. Mashed potatoes, gravy from the drippings, stuffing baked inside the bird, savory and soft, cranberry sauce, ocean spray from the can, sliced into perfect ridged circles, sweet potatoes with marshmallows melted on top, creamed corn, rolls with butter, celery sticks stuffed with cream cheese, olives on the side. Everyone ate too much. The kids were excused first, fleeing back to their new toys, while the adults lingered over coffee and pie. Conversation drifted. Someone fell asleep in the armchair. The dishes could wait. Later, the evening movie, The Wizard of Oz maybe, broadcast once a year and watched by everyone. Or Miracle on 34th Street, or whatever Christmas film the networks had chosen. The whole family together, full and drowsy, lights low, the tree twinkling. Outside, the world was quiet. Snow covered everything if you were lucky, clean and white and perfect. Kids bundled up and went outside to try new sleds, to build snowmen, to have snowball fights until fingers went numb. Neighbors waved from porches. Merry Christmas echoed up and down the street. Someone's father was already out there, stringing up a new gift, a basketball hoop or a swing set, while kids circled impatiently. The sense of community was real. People looked out for each other. If someone was alone, they were invited over. If a family was struggling, quiet help appeared. A ham left on the doorstep, presents for kids who might otherwise go without. It was not perfect. Nothing ever is. But it felt whole. It felt like everyone was part of something larger than themselves. A neighborhood, a town, a nation celebrating together. The decade had its shadows. By the late 1960s, the war in Vietnam played on the evening news. Families gathered around the same television that showed them Rudolph and played footage they could not explain to their children. Some homes had empty chairs at Christmas dinner, boys who were overseas, boys who would not come home. The assassinations had shaken something loose. JFK in 1963, Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy in 1968. The optimism of the early decade had curdled into something more complicated. The world outside was changing, turbulent, uncertain. But Christmas was a refuge. For one day at least, families held tight to tradition, the tree, the presents, the dinner, the togetherness. Whatever was happening out there, in here it was still Christmas, and Christmas still meant something. Night fell and the house grew quiet. The fire burned low. The tree lights glowed. Wrapping paper had been stuffed into trash bags, toys organized, new clothes folded and put away. The adults sat in the living room sipping one last drink, talking softly. You were exhausted, completely, utterly spent. The day had been everything you had hoped for and more. You dragged yourself to bed clutching your favorite new possession and fell asleep before your head hit the pillow. Tomorrow would be ordinary again. School would resume. The tree would come down. The decorations would go back to the attic. But tonight, Christmas was still here, still wrapped around you like a warm blanket. Ask anyone who experienced Christmas in the 1960s, America, and they will tell you the same thing. We had less. No internet, no video games, no streaming, no smartphones. 3 channels on the television, 1 telephone in the hallway. The Sears catalog was our Amazon, but somehow it felt like more. There was anticipation, weeks and months of it, building slowly and making Christmas morning feel earned. There was togetherness, families crowded into living rooms, watching the same specials, singing the same songs, sharing the same meals. There was wonder, real, unironic, childlike wonder at the lights, at the presents, and at the possibility that maybe, just maybe, Santa Claus was real. We did not have everything, but we had each other, and we had Christmas. There were aluminum trees and bubble lights, the Sears wish book with its dog-eared pages, Rudolph and Charlie Brown and the Grinch, the department store Santa and the carolers in the snow, the turkey, the Jell-O mold, and Grandma's pumpkin pie. It was not a simpler time. That is a myth we tell ourselves. The 60s were complicated and difficult in ways we sometimes forget. But Christmas, for one brief shining moment, made everything feel possible. If you lived it, you remember. And if you remember, you carry it with you still. A warmth that no amount of years can extinguish.